Hello and welcome to My Way or the AI Way. I'm Scott Davison, and today I wanted to have a chat about search engine optimization. This is an area that I think is being impacted a lot by AI. If I look at my own behavior, since using AI, I'm going to Google a whole lot less. And even when I do, I'm often getting the answer at the top of the search results and not clicking through to websites. So I'm actually visiting fewer websites. So clearly, I'm not the only one. This must be having an impact on user behavior on Google and also the effect on businesses. So if you're a business who's trying to get discovered, you need to be thinking about how that works in this new environment with AI. Now, today's guest is someone who knows a whole lot more about SEO than I do. He's the founder of Bring Digital Performance, and he's been in the SEO game for over 20 years. Matt Hodgson, welcome to the show.
Scotty, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Great to be here. Sounds like you almost didn't make it. So I've had lots of good excuses for why people are late, but it sounds like you've dragged yourself off your deathbed. What happened? You had a bit of an accident?
Yeah, mate. I just the thought of being on a podcast with you made me go and ride my bike and then crash it. So yeah, I'm running on about 3.5 cylinders at the moment, but I'm here, and thankfully, the beauty is not marred. It's
The
all
face is untacked, but it sounded like you had a bit of damage in your you've dosed yourself up on Nurofen. So
I'm good to go. I'm good to go. God knows what's going to come out of the mouth, though.
I appreciate your commitment to the cause. Yeah, like I say, I really just wanted to have a bit of a chat about SEO, search engine optimization. I think this is going to be relevant to all business users. And I was reading your article. You recently published an article on B&T, bit of a thought piece. Well done on that piece. I really enjoyed it. SEO is dead, not even close was the title. It's evolving into digital performance. So what was the sort of crux of that article for the listeners? I'll definitely put a link to it in the show notes as well. But what prompted you to want to write that article, and what are some of the key points you were trying to make?
What did prompt me to write that article? Ironically, it's an ongoing topic, and we're presented with on a fairly regular basis. But speaking with the guys at B&T who we work with, and they did ask that question, of which really sort of sparked some passion within me. I guess why I wrote that, was just to placate, or just to sort of help people understand that change is inevitable. Like, things are going to change, right? But in the SEO world, things are always changing. However, what we see in our experience is that although things are changing and behaviors are shifting, new platforms are coming up, the underlying principles of good search engine optimization, they haven't really changed. They've become, they've been sort of brought forward. There's more focus on SEO best practice because we need to adhere to that. So I guess that was part of it. The other part of it is that as many people, I would assume, sort of scroll through LinkedIn and you see all these different opinion pieces. I think a lot of it also comes from the fact that there's people out there that have got vested interest in paid media. So why not use AI as the sort of emerging platform and tool to sort of try and throw SEO under the bus a bit. But with all that said and done, SEO as a practice, what it was 4 years ago, 6, 8, 10, 20 years ago, is very different. In some respects, you look back, is when I first started, you literally, you buy a domain, you publish a page, publish a website on that domain, stuff it with keywords, and lo and behold, you're off to the races. And that's it. It was quite siloed. However, SEO, digital performance, now it's not siloed. There's many other elements and signals and factors that play into an effective SEO strategy, or what I like to call now a digital performance strategy.
Okay. Yeah, you talked in your article about some of those trends over the years. So that initial one there, but then what are some of the other things you've seen over the last 20 years in terms of, I guess they call them black hat tactics at the time, but sort of tricks that people have been using to try and game the system, and how's that played out over the...
Well, it hasn't played out well, has it? Black hat, there's cloaking and setting up malicious networks or networks of websites to try and fool Google and other search engines into thinking that you are a you've got a popular website because all these other sites are linking to it. I mentioned keyword stuffing. Way back in the day, no one wanted to have words on a page. So instead of having, in practice, a white page with black text on it, they'd use a white page with white text on it because they realise that the words need to be on there, but they don't want them visible. So, there's many of these different tactics that have come and gone. Some are still in practice. The reality of it is that although they are in practice, at some point or another, there will be a slap on the wrist. So, hence why best practice SEO and staying the path and doing what works and what is right. And dare I say it, Google does give you some direction on what is good and what is bad from an SEO perspective. You follow those guidelines and you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. Okay. And with AI, so my use case, as I say, I'm using Google less than what I used to because I'm getting a lot of my answers straight from ChatGPT. But I'm also, even Google itself is now providing a lot of the answers right at the top of the search results. So you're not having to go through to the website. So firstly, is that showing up yet in the Google data or the SEO data that you're seeing? Is there fewer people clicking through on search results as a rule?
100%. Yeah. Search traffic's dropped. So what you're talking about is, you're on Google and it's, essentially called AI overviews, right? Which are, I use them. They're fantastic with context. So what that means is, again, let's go 6 months back, right? So 12 months back, right? You would go to Google and you would ask a question of, how do I make a vanilla slice? Of which then you're sent to, or you're presented with, 10 blue links and some ads and other bits and pieces on that search engine result page. Now with AI overviews, Google's essentially serving you content directly on the search engine result page. So therefore what it's doing is it's answering that question for you. What that means is that if you're a recipe website, your traffic from Google is starting to decline. However, Google is potentially taking copy from your website and serving that copy, serving that recipe in an AI overview. The short answer is yes, traffic is declining. The reality of it is, though, is that for someone to still, for a searcher to still transact with your business, with your website, they may go through a series of, you sort of think of it as like a funnel, right? You're doing a series of bits of research and whatever, but ultimately, at the end of the day, research and maybe I want to buy a baking tray for making my vanilla slices. Well, then I still need to transact with you on your website. So I still need to go to the website to actually make that transaction.
Yeah.
The summary of that is that yes, traffic has declined. There's still, if anything, a greater or a higher quality of traffic that is hitting the website.
I was thinking about how it affects the different businesses. So like an e-commerce site, like you're saying, they're still ultimately coming to your website to purchase the product. So it's just how you're servicing your product in the search results. Obviously for the recipe example, which is one I can relate to because I'm getting all my recipes straight from ChatGPT now. And it's just a much better experience. I used to go, you talk about SEO tactics, you used to get to a recipe site and have to scroll through
all the way down the bottom.
a long story of the history of why they were doing this just to get to the result and then dodge some pop-up banners.
Yeah.
So those sort of businesses that were set up really as ad-funded businesses, so they rely on the volume of traffic to the website. Obviously, it's going to have a huge impact on them. But then if I think about, perhaps a typical bricks and mortar business who's using a website really just as a way for their clients to find them, even to come and get their phone number, it doesn't really matter if they're getting that phone number directly from an AI agent, as long as they're able to find you. Say for a typical business who just wants to be discovered and be able to be found by their users and potential clients, how do they need to be thinking about it beyond just building a website and waiting for people to come via Google?
It's a great question. One of which, so we do a lot of work with, very different clients, right? We do a lot of work or some work with service-based customers, local customers, local businesses. There might be electricians, there might be scaffolding companies, and essentially they very much rely on either having someone call them or physically visit them. Now, these businesses don't have an amazing marketing budget to invest in website and a content strategy and various other things. And the reality, as you said, Scotty, is that ultimately all they want is someone to call them or walk into the shops. With that respect, I mean, a website's still going to be important for them as a trust signal, not only for Google but for their customers. But what I would be suggesting is that to think about the tools available to them provided by Google, Facebook, etc., such as Google Business Profile, right? So the Google Business Profile is that little thing. If you do a search for, a plumber in St Kilda or something like that, you have what's called a local pack pop up or some map listings, which is commonly, or takes data from Google Business Profile. That's a tool that Google provides businesses to publish their business details within the Google search engine results. Yes, a website's still going to be important, but you need to take into account that, where are you going to get the best cut through? Where are you going to get the best return for your time that you're spending on marketing and promoting your business in search? You're probably better off thinking about Google Business Profile. Have you got a Facebook profile? I mean, dare I say it, Yelp, or what's another one that's commonly used, particularly in hospitality, TripAdvisor. So leveraging those platforms to promote your business.
Yep. And the reviews, so I find myself relying a lot on Google, say for a restaurant, but even retail businesses, certainly hotels, accommodation, I'll always look at the Google business listing that you're talking about and the reviews.
Yeah.
Not just the ratings, but, you read through a few of them to get for your business. So is that something businesses can focus on, sort of growing that part of the experience?
Hugely, hugely important. SEO is not, SEO is a very valuable practice. Organic search delivers somewhere between probably 60 to 70% of traffic to websites in general, but it's a labor intensive process and practice now, and it's quite technical. Now, if you're a local business, even sort of grasping the concepts and trying to keep up with what you need to do is very difficult. However, as a local business, the one thing that you have very much in your control, which is quite simple to manage, is your reviews, right? And how you collect those reviews and how you respond to those reviews. And they carry so much weight. They're pretty simple. Well, when I say this, there's mechanisms in place to enable you to get those reviews. There's mechanisms in place to enable you to respond to those reviews. And as you've said, Scotty, more often than not, your potential customers will be looking at those reviews.
Okay.
Again, local businesses that we work with, that's something that we hammer home to them, and we're really, really enthusiastic for them to actually take control of that.
Okay. And what about AI? So let's think of ChatGPT as an example. Obviously, if they're not already in the future, people are going to be using ChatGPT or similar as an assistant to say, okay, I need an electrician in St Kilda.
Yeah.
Firstly, how can businesses ensure that they're showing up in those searches? And are there tools available to actually see if you're ranking there, the way you can check if you're ranking on Google?
Yeah, so tools have certainly come away in the past, again, 6 months. So, all right, let's look at it from an SEO perspective and a Google perspective, and then compare that to AI, which is quite interesting. In one respect, is that Google rarely gives you an understanding as to where it's getting its information. Like no one really knows, right? It's our job to try and interpret why Google does certain things and why a page appears on that search result because of X, Y, and Z. Only recently, just using Perplexity, which is an AI tool similar to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT does a similar thing. But what the AI tools are doing now is that you'll do a search for a business in those tools, and it'll give you the results, but it'll also give you references of where it's taking that information from. So I mentioned earlier about TripAdvisor. Right, so TripAdvisor is a source where AI tools are collecting their data from, as is Facebook, and these are essentially other platforms. Hence why, if you're a small business with limited time, limited resource, limited budget, think about how your business is being represented on these platforms, because that's ultimately where these tools are collecting some of their information from.
Yeah, so they're still effectively coming to your website, scraping your website for the information. So I guess a lot of the traffic to your website is now and is going to more be these robots getting the information and providing the answer. So if you're building a website, are you still building it for humans, or are you building it thinking of how it's going to be picked up by AI? What do you recommend there?
You build for a human first, right? And there's computers, robots, spiders, whatever we want to call them, right? They're pretty simple beasts. However, at the same time, they're becoming smarter and smarter, and now more so than ever. I mean, again, back in yesteryear, Google would look at the keyword on a page, right, and I'd use that as a pretty strong ranking indicator. But now it's looking for keyword context, formatting, what other sites are saying about you that relates to that topic. So there's a whole there's a whole myriad of things that come into play when Google or these tools crawl your website. So to answer your question, you build it for humans. Yeah, you build it for humans. You build your site so as you've got things like About Us pages are really important, because About Us gives a robot, gives a spider a better sense as to that there is a real person or people behind this business. There's an actual pulse with this entity that lives on the internet. Making sure that simple things like formatting, H1s, H2s, schema markup code is important. Machine code is important to help the machines when they do get to your website, so as that they can quickly understand what it is that you do and the services you offer in the particular areas. So there's still definite practices and best practices that should be applied in building a 3-page website or a 4,000-page website.
Okay, and how can you check if you're ranking on ChatGPT, for example? Is there a way to know, am I showing up when people look for my type of business?
So tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, SimilarWeb, these types of tools are starting to integrate where possible, AI overview impressions. SimilarWeb just last month, I think, introduced a feature into their platform, which is called AI chatbot traffic. So that's doing is that's actually able to tell you, I'm looking at an example here, but that they're able to tell you not only where you're appearing in those chatbots, but it's going to show you the language or the prompts or the questions that people are using, of which then that sends you traffic. So tools are evolving, and as they have to, tools are evolving quite quickly, which is good. I think there's still a way off. Obviously, we've got a long way to come, but there's definitely plenty of tools out there and features in those tools that enable you to better understand how you're performing.
So it is possible to, I mean, that's really helpful. So it is possible to see, it's technically possible to see what someone asked in order to get you as the response in ChatGPT. That would be really helpful.
It is, yeah. Technically it is. I'm looking at some examples here now. There's caveats to it, right? Obviously I don't speak for the tools, but background and sort of understanding how this stuff works. There's caveats to it. You're working with a data set. These tools don't have 100% visibility of what's happening on the internet or even your website. So there's going to be some estimations and guesses applied to that. But yes, definitely there's tools out there now that are helping provide us with much greater visibility of what's happening in those bots.
Okay. And the other thing I remember reading in your article, which piqued my attention, was just the value of video content. So this podcast, I'd done podcasts previously and it was purely audio. Now I'm recording the video because it's easy enough to do, and I'm uploading that to YouTube. But can the AI tools actually effectively listen to what's happening in this video? And are these keywords that we're speaking, or would I need to be publishing that transcript for them to be able to be discovered?
That's a good question. What I've seen thus far is that I don't know how they do it, is probably the shortest answer. But what I am seeing at the moment is that you can, where did I say it? Notebook LM, so Google's Notebook LM. You can simply provide it a YouTube link and it will be able to view. I don't know the correct language, but it'll be able to interpret that video. Now, video, particularly on YouTube, they come with, most of them now have a transcript that sits alongside that video. So, that transcript's going to be hugely valuable for the bot to understand. But, taking a step back from videos and AI, that's one of the the biggest challenges with the world that we live in around AI, SEO, digital performance is content, and videos such as this. It's getting easier to create them, but there's still some moving parts in creating them. But these really do form a fantastic sort of content hub, of which you would have spokes off that single piece of video to develop other bits of content, be it written snippets and reels and those sorts of things. Video as a content platform is hugely valuable.
Okay. No, it's really cool, Matt. I mean, as you say, it's evolving just as it's always evolved. There's now all these different channels you need to be thinking about, potentially different types of media, not just written word on a page. But from what you're saying, if you're a small business, pick the one or two things that you think are going to have the biggest impact for you, because trying to do all of those would be a bit of a not a path to success.
No, it's not. And this is one of the things that you commonly see it, and that like there's so many platforms, right? There's, you've got your Google Business, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, LinkedIn.
Well, Reddit's one that seemed to have a bit of a comeback. I think there was an update to Google a while back, and suddenly I started getting Reddit posts at the top of all my Google searches. What was that one about, by the way?
You're really, you're scratching at wounds there for some of us, but
okay.
There was a convenient arrangement between Reddit and Google, which meant that
okay, that was a commercial thing, was it? I wonder why.
There was certainly some dollars attached to it. Yeah.
Okay.
But as you were saying, though, platforms and as a business, you do want to sort of focus. You want to fish where the fish are, but you also want to maintain those platforms. There's some stuff that SEOs will do around entity SEO, and that's essentially ensuring that the message out on the internet about your business is a unified message. You're a plumber in St Kilda and you do toilets, and I'm not doing any plumbers any justice here. Yeah, but if you're a plumber in St Kilda, then you say you're a plumber in St Kilda and you have that on your Facebook page, but you make sure you have the same language on your LinkedIn page or on your Google Business profiles, ensuring that there's a unified message of what you do as a business across these platforms is very important.
Okay, great. And any other last tips for businesses? Typical business user, they've got a long to-do list, they've only got a couple of hours a day. Where should they be focusing?
Look, hygiene is where I would be starting, aside from the entity stuff. So get your Google Business profile in order. Make sure that you've got any other entities or platforms that reference your business on the internet, yellow pages, True Local, or any of these sorts of things. Make sure that you've got a grasp as to what the language that they are using, and make sure that it's all unified language, unified what your business does. Things like hygiene on your website, so just formatting. It's a bit of a challenge, if you're a small business, but making sure that you're using correct formatting on your pages. An About Us page is going to be hugely valuable. If time permits, obviously creating some content from your perspective. We take the plumbers as an example. A perspective from a plumber would be that he may get 4 call outs a month for someone who's blocked their toilet, right? Why have they blocked their toilet? Oh, they put a bike helmet down it, or socks fell down. I don't know why the toilet's blocking.
You're gonna work on your metaphor.
It's the drugs. But if you do have the liberty, or if you do have the time to be able to produce content for your website, write it from your perspective. I'm Matt, I'm a plumber, and these are the things that we see in our work life. All that sort of stuff is going to be hugely valuable.
Okay, no, it's really good advice. We've covered a lot, Matt. I'll put a link to the article if people want to read that. If businesses want a bit of help with this is obviously what you do at Bring. So how do they get in touch with you? What would you recommend?
Look, hit us up on the website, bring.au. You're more than welcome to send me an email, matt@bring.au. And I'm sure Scotty will probably have some more information in the notes as well.
Yeah, I'll put all your contact details in the show notes. Thanks for coming on the show. Hopefully the drugs have held on just long enough to get you through the interview. Where are you off to next? You back to the hospital, or what's on for the rest of the day?
Hip replacements and the couch.
Well, enjoy that, and enjoy your weekend. Thanks, Matt.
Yes, mate.
Okay, so that was Matt Hodgson from Bring Digital talking about SEO. I hope you enjoyed that interview and got some useful information about it. I'll put links to all the references Matt mentioned in the show notes. And once again, thank you for joining me on this journey to learn more about AI. I'm Scott Davison, and this is My Way or the AI Way.